The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Game Podcast Network is brought to you by Arc Fantasy. Get up to 1K in a deposit match when you sign up at Arc Fantasy with the promo code SGPN. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Game Podcast here on the Sports Game Podcast Network. It is currently Friday night, July 25th, around 10:40 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Rose always Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the final matches in Kitzbuhel and Umag. So we're going to break down the two matches taking place on clay on Saturday. Now, I'm sure some of you are wondering, what's the story with DC? Am I going to cover that event again? I will. There will be an episode tomorrow morning, which will be about the semis in DC. So if you want my thoughts on the hard court, then you'll be getting it tomorrow morning. But we are still waiting for some lines. Of course, the Shelton match just ended against Tiafo, but we are still waiting on the Fritz match to happen. So as a result, we are missing some lines. So we are going to be breaking down the semis in DC in the morning. But for now, we're only going to be doing the clay matches for Saturday. Anyway, point is, before we get into the actual recap of last episode, a reminder that you can support the show by like subscribing on YouTube. A reminder the podcast is also available on audio formats only on Spotify and Apple. So once again, podcast you can find on YouTube for live streams and for video formats, but if you want to check out audio only, you can, as it's on Spotify and Apple. But please like and subscribe, and please leave a rating and a review. Also a reminder that you can check out the merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great tennis merch. We have sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs. High quality, very affordable, different colors as well. And a reminder that the Sports Camp Podcast is also back with their 32-team NFL previews, because they're bringing back the phrase that pays. Each episode, they'll give out a word, and each word will result in a 32-word phrase. So once again, you can enter that word into the phrase. Submit the entire phrase, though, for a chance to win a $1,000 circa future. Anyway, starting off with the actual recap of the semifinal episode for Kitzbuhel and Umag. Once again, swept the board. Overall, never in doubt. Or I should say the lock was really never in doubt. The dog had one slight moment of doubt, but still pretty straightforward, as we did win our picks of the second straight episode. For the lock, we had Kaza minus 1.5 games, minus 116 against Rinderknech. Close early on, then you saw Rinderknech fall apart, and Kaza coasted as he did not get broken in the entire match. But either way, nice win there for the lock as he won in straight sets. For the dog, we had Darderi in straight sets against Carabelli at plus 120. That one was a bit in doubt, as Carabelli did have a set point in the first set tiebreak on serve, and you saw Darderi get the point. He ended up winning the second point to get the mini break, and then he eventually held out. Then he won the second set convincingly. But either way, a nice back-to-back sweep, streak for us, as we ended up winning the lock and dog for the second straight episode. So for the actual comment section, by the way, I see D. Johnson stopping by. Oh, what's up, D. Johnson? A point is, though, pretty straightforward for the semis. Not too much drama on either event, as you ended up seeing, for example, in Kitzbuhel. Both matches were in straight sets. Felt like Bublik, it was a heartbreaker if he took the team total over, which I did like for Bublik in that one, because he was down 4-1 in the second set. So you needed one game from Dazan Schulp to cash basically the over for Bublik, and he lost 5 in a row. So Bublik came all the way back, and he ended up winning in straight sets. But no drama at all, as every match in Kitzbuhel and Umag ended in straight sets. Now, Kaza beat Rinderknech. Said before, they were serving quite well, and then Rinderknech went up 30-love in the late stages of the second set. He was serving to stay in it at 5-6, but it looked like it was going to be a pretty straightforward tiebreak, because there were no break points in the entire first set. It was love 30 for Rinderknech, and then he fell apart. He forgot how to play tennis, and Kaza not only won that game, but he proceeded to win the first 3 games of the second set. So Kaza went from tied 5-5 to winning 5 games in a row to take a commanding set and break lead. At that point, he kept holding, and he got the job done there, 6-3 in the second set. No break points faced for him in the entire matchup. Went the way we thought it would. Rinderknech was in good form, but he played a bunch of tennis, ran out of gas, and at the end of the day, he's still not a great returner, and Kaza's been serving well, but nice job by him to get into his first ever ATP final in his young career. Bublik, though, said a second ago, he looked early, then he fell behind a break in the second set. It was 4-1, and then Dazan Schulp fell apart, and Bublik won 5 games in a row. But either way, nice job by Bublik to make it to the final of an event for the second straight week, and he'll try to win his second clay title after winning his first clay title last week. So it should be a fun matchup, a rematch actually, of the semis in Gstaad, and we'll see if Kaza can maybe get a bit of revenge after losing to Bublik in straight sets about a week ago in Gstaad. Anyway, I'm moving on to Umag. You had Darderi, who beat Carabelli in straight sets. Once again, you saw Carabelli have a set point in the first set tiebreak on serve, and then you eventually saw Darderi win the next 3 points. Then he coasted in the second set to cash us the dog. Darderi's been really good. Like Bublik, he's trying to win a clay title back-to-back weeks. We'll see if both guys can close it out. But nice job by him. I think he's looked like the best player in the field so far, and he looked like it again on the semifinal matchup there against Carabelli. Then you had what looked like a pretty competitive matchup on paper as Taberner took on De Zoomer. We thought De Zoomer would be favored in the match, but a reminder, when we recorded, we had no lines, so we had to guess what it was going to be. I thought the Zoomer would be around minus 130, give or take. I think he closed like minus 120, and you saw Taberner at plus money or even money based on what he closed at. We thought Taberner would win. We liked the dog blindly, despite not knowing the lines. We thought De Zoomer would be favored based on his resume and his ATP title history. Didn't matter at all as Taberner kicked his ass. You saw De Zoomer win a very, very long first service game, which made the match feel like it was going to take an eternity, because you ended up seeing Taberner hold the first game of the match. Then the second game, the first service game for De Zoomer, took 22 minutes for one game. 22 minutes. And De Zoomer held. So congratulations. The problem was, once De Zoomer held in that game, everything went downhill, and Taberner proceeded to win 11 of the final 13 games as he won 6-2, 6-1. So congratulations for winning the one game, De Zoomer. It all went downhill from there, and Taberner absolutely buried you into oblivion. So either way, we had a pretty anticlimactic finale in Umag, as it looked like it was going to be an epic potentially based on the first 30 minutes, and then you saw one-way traffic the rest of the way. Taberner, though, has been really, really good. Beats Rundolo, defending champion. He's looked sharp so far, beating De Jong and now beating De Zoomer. He's played well, and now we have a pretty fun final between Darderi and Taberner. Nothing else really add, though. I would say not too much drama. I'll recap some of the DC stuff in the next episode, because once again, I am doing an episode in the morning for the DC semis. But I do want to point out quickly, I will be roasting Medvedev, and once again, a quick shout out to anybody that listened to me about not betting on Tiafoe in the City Open. I'll save that for tomorrow, but Tiafoe has been getting a ton of hype in the City Open, being a home court advantage. Good luck with that. He lost again in the quarters. Anyway, a point is, I'll save the in-depth breakdown, though, of those matches in the next episode, but it's time to move on into the final in Kitzbuhel and in Umag. Before we get into the actual breakdown of the final matches on Saturday, a reminder they're brought to you by our sponsor, Circa, because they are still hosting 3 of the biggest pro football contests around. Circa Million, Circa Survivor, Circa Grandissimo, over 21 million in guaranteed prizes. You can't call yourself a true degen if you're not competing in the Circa Survivor contests or football contests in general. Coming out with SGPN at the Circa contest weekend, August 21st to the 23rd, for an amazing weekend, including live shows, open bars. Plus, you get 15% off your stay at Circa with the promo code SGP15. Contests are open, or the contests are open to everyone. Sign up in Nevada. Play from anywhere with the help of SGPN's official proxy. Go to footballcontest.com. Use code SGP to get $50 off your proxy fees. We're also brought to you by Onyx Fantasy, because they're doing Best of Mania happening all summer long, giving away 15 million in prizes, including 2 million for first place. You have no waiver wire, no arguments about trades. Best ball is the best way to play fantasy football. They also have a great pick'em option if you want to try to create some entries. You go up to 500 times your entry. And when you sign up, though, for your new account, use the code SGPN to get a special pick and a first-time visit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. On Fantasy promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Scam Podcast. Finished going through the recap of the semifinal matches in Kitzbuhel and in Umag. Time to move on into the final. Starting off, as always, with Kitzbuhel, because it's happening first on the actual calendar, to get into the order of play for exact times, if you were curious. So Kitzbuhel is going to be happening first at 8:30 in the morning, and then Umag's happening at 2 p.m. Eastern. So keep that in mind. For the next episode, though, which we'll be doing in the morning, we will be short a dog recap. Full disclosure. Hopefully the lock's done by then, so we can give you a small recap, but still, we have to record earlier in the morning for Washington, and based on that, we will not have a dog recap no matter what. Just spoiler alert, my dog is going to be in the Umag match, as you can tell. Anyway, for the actual preview of Bublik against Kaza, Deja Vu faced off last week. Bublik won in straight sets. Bublik massive favorite to win back-to-back clay titles. is around minus 330. You have Kaza at around plus 260. For the spread, you have minus 3.5 for Bublik, plus 3.5 for Kaza. Coincidentally, the exact same spread as the match in Umag I'll get into in a second. For the over-under, you either have a juice 21.5 or you have 22.5. The over is plus 103. The under is minus 123. For the set spread, Bublik in straight sets is minus 120. Kaza to win a set is minus 110. The over 2.5 sets is plus 160. Now, to deep dive the actual path of both players so far, Bublik has been winning convincingly. In fact, he has not dropped a set in the entire event. He's been very good. Beat Tarante, beat Shevchenko, and beat Dzhanchilp all in straight sets. Kaza has been good too. Dropped a set to Buse, and then he's won every set after that. So both guys have been in great form. A reminder, though, we already have action in this actual matchup, because in the outright episode we gave out Bublik to win the event, so we already have Bublik to get the job done, and we got that at plus 295. So I already have a great price on Bublik. If you want to hedge it, you can. Will I? Probably not. But I do think that Bublik, once again, at minus 3 and change, it feels very good when you have a plus 300 ticket basically in your back pocket, and now you're saving about $6 compared to the final. But we'll see how Bublik does into the final. Either way, though, a point is it is a rematch of the matchup they ended up having in the last tournament, as Bublik did win in straight sets. Really a tale of two sets. Bublik won the first set 6-1, then Kaza settled in, and he did force a 7-5. The issue was you ended up seeing Bublik serve dominate the match, as Kaza ended up forcing 0 breakpoints in the match. Bublik ended up having 12 aces. He won 87% of the first serve points. Not that great on the second serve, only winning 47%, but still did not face a break point in that matchup. Kaza, though, has been serving very well in the event, and the fact is both guys have only been broken one time, so you have seen some really dominant serving from both guys. Kaza's fought off 10 of the 11 breakpoint chances he's faced, and Bublik has fought off 9 of the 10. So both guys are serving very well. You might see a breaker potentially happen here, which would suggest the over in this one. The question is, do I think Bublik wins in straight sets again at minus 120, or am I giving Kaza a puncher's chance to make it competitive? I do think Bublik is pretty fortunate that Dzhanchilp fell apart, because Bublik was on the verge of actually losing a set because he was down 4-1. Now, in the final last week in Gstaad, he did drop a set as he ended up winning in 3 against Cerundolo. Kaza, though, I think you could argue nerves might play a factor, with it being his biggest match of his career, being in an ATP final for the first time. Having said that, I do think it's going to be a mix of both. I can see Bublik winning in straight sets or in 3, but I do like the over. I think that the safest way to play it is Bublik team total over personally, or Kaza maybe team total over at 10.5. He can lose in straight sets though, which could be dangerous. But Bublik, you might, if you end up getting the same script that you got in Gstaad, where Bublik starts off fast, Kaza's nervous because it's a big match, and then Kaza settles in with the serve, then you might end up getting a 7-5 or 7-6, or a 3-setter, and Bublik does go over that team total. He should have went over the team total against Dzhanchilp. He needed one more game from Dzhanchilp, and he choked. Point is, though, Bublik, I think team total is the way to go here. I think he will win. I think nerves will play a factor. Kaz has been solid. I get it. But Bublik, I think, is just simply put a much better returner than the likes of Rinderknech and Struff. Yes, I recognize that Kaz's returning has been quite good in the event so far, but I do want to point out that just because you're facing off against good servers does not mean they're all created equally. And the fact is, we know Comesaña is solid. That was very close, that went to a breaker, ended up winning a very tight breaker in the second set. Struff, though, big server, can't return, and Kaza killed him. Rinderknech, kind of the same story. Good serve, bad return. It just felt like it was a pretty easy matchup for Kaza, and Bublik has the weird combo of being a very good server and a good returner. And Bublik, we know, stands very far back on the baseline. I think he can do a decent job of neutralizing Kaza's serve over the course of the matchup to some degree. I do think you're going to see at least one competitive set with not many breaks in it. So give me the team total over for Bublik instead. I think he wins, but it does leave the door open for a straight set competitive win or a 3-set battle. I like that combo and multiple draws you get with that outcome. Give me Bublik team total over as my thoughts for this one. Moving on to the next matchup, you have Darderi taking on Taberner. Darderi in this one is minus 270. Taberner is around plus 220. For the spread, same as the Bublik match, minus 3.5, minus 120 for Darderi, and you have plus 3.5 for Taberner at even money. The over-under set at 21.5. Now, unlike the Bublik and Kaza matchup, no head-to-head history, so can't really draw based on previous matchups. Now, for the Pathwell's players, you ended up seeing Darderi have a couple of scares. Prismic jumped him in the first set in the quarters, and then he responded. He won the next two sets, but Ugo Carabelli did have a set point on his serve, and then eventually did kind of fall apart from there. Darderi, though, has been really, really good. It has not been a fluky run here. He's looked very impressive. Now, Taberner has come out of nowhere to look very sharp. He lost in the first match to Baena in Gstaad, and then came to Umag and said, what if I just did a pretty funny thing, messed around and won the title? Because he ended up beating Herbert, beat Cerundolo, defending champion, in that crazy three-setter, beat De Jong in straight sets, who made the final in Gstaad the week prior. So he was in good form, and he killed De Zoomer and only dropped 3 games in the process. So Taberner's been really, really good. Now, I do want to point out that I do feel like it's going to be a pretty competitive matchup here. I think Darderi's going to win. I said in the quarter episode, or I should say the semi episode, when I was watching that quarterfinal matchup between Prismic and Darderi, I thought whoever won that matchup would win the event based on how high quality the actual performance was from both guys. Darderi's been really good. I think he's been the best player here, but Taberner's putting his name out there in the hunt for best player in the field so far. It has not been a fluky Cinderella run. He has earned everything that's come his way. Yes, Cerundolo has been a clown, and he ended up getting broken while serving for the match. But the point is, Taberner has earned a spot to be here. It was a very important match for him against Zoomer, and he was able to bury him convincingly. I do think Darderi possesses unique challenges for Taberner to deal with, mainly the serve and the forehand. We saw him beat Cerundolo in a marathon with, I'd say, similar attributes, but I'd argue that Darderi might be a better server than Cerundolo, and his forehand does commit significantly less errors. When Cerundolo's off, he's spraying balls all over the court. But I do think Darderi will use the firepower to make life difficult for Taberner. The one thing I did notice in that matchup in the semis, which was not a surprise, because the Zoomer can only play one way, the lack of firepower for the Zoomer was on full display, and it felt like Taberner was constantly getting the type of rallies he wanted. He dictated the points, he pushed the Zoomer around, and he knew the Zoomer couldn't really hurt him. And he was right, and Taberner was able to take control of most of the rallies. That will not happen in this matchup. Darderi will use the forehand, he'll use his variety and his good serve as well to try to take over the points. And I do think Taberner might have to play more defensively than he wants to, but that's why I think Darderi's going to win. I think he's the better clay player. He won a clay title last week. He's won multiple clay titles this year. A shout out to him for winning in Marrakech a couple months ago. But I do think Darderi is the better player. Having said that, do I see it being easy? No. I think Taberner is good enough to actually win a set here. We saw Darderi drop a set to Prismic because he no-showed the first 25 minutes. He arguably should have lost a set to Carabelli in the semis. He's left the door open. I'll put it that way. Will Taberner capitalize and win? I'm going to say no. Do I think 21.5 games is too low for a total? Probably. I'll go over. I think you might see a breaker in there. Maybe you'll see a 3-setter. But I do think Taberner is being disrespected, at least based on his form in the event. Yes, I'm picking him to lose. Do I think he loses in embarrassing fashion? I don't. I think Taberner shows up ready to fight, and I think he falls short. But I do think that Darderi has proven that as good as he has been, there are some lapses in his play here and there, and I do think you're looking at a spot where Taberner will keep the match competitive while eventually falling short. Nothing else to add, though, for the actual match previews. Looking at the comment section, I see Ayo stopping by, what's up? And I see Billy stopping by, talking about how Bublik is now a clay specialist. Guy's cooking. Tell you right now, the guy's cooking. We made a lot of money back in Bublik for the last couple weeks. It has worked out quite well, and we'll see how he does and how everyone else does in the finals on Saturday in Kitzbuhel and in Umag. Time to get into the Lock and Dog picks for the show. Before we get into the actual Lock and Dog, reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, which is MyBookie.ag. It's available in a ton of locations. Use them to bet on baseball, tennis, WNBA, golf, and of course football futures. You can also use crypto for best payouts, easy deposit, sign up though for your new account. Use the code SGPN to get a special 100% odds match up to 1K. Terms and conditions apply. Look at the G promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm because they have power trends now, the best of the best for what the house models have to offer. And a reminder that they're updated every day. They're only available on Rhythm, and you can use them for baseball and for WNBA. They've been really good in both. Baseball win rate is 3%. For WNBA, 35 and 20 since launch. Download the Rhythm app, though. Check out power trends. Start betting smarter. And a reminder, you'd always get a free trial for a week by using the send free trial by going to sportsgamblingpockets.com/rhythm to get your 7-day free trial. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the final matchups in Kitzbuhel and Umag. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I'm going to go back to Kitzbuhel. I'm going to go to the Bublik team total. I'm going to go with the over 12.5 at -140. Bit juicy. I apologize, but I thought it was the best play in this matchup. I saw Bet365 by comparison, by the way, had this priced at -163. So you're saving about 20 plus cents by shopping around, which I'll do. And I think you're looking at a good opportunity for Bublik to win or maybe even lose competitively while it becomes a closer matchup. The point is, though, Bublik and Kaza have been serving very well in the event. Bublik and Kaza have been broken one time each in the entire tournament. Kaza did drop a set to Buse in the first matchup. He has not lost a set since. In fact, he has not been broken since. So Bublik has been very good at returning. But Kaza might test him a bit with the actual serve. He got broken in the second set against Buse. Since then, 7 straight sets for Kaza without being broken. Bublik got broken against Zanschulp on Friday. Only time he's been broken in the event. Point is, I see a lot of holds. I see a competitive set. And I think you might end up seeing a couple ways to get the team total over. You might get the same script as last week in Gstaad, which was Bublik winning one set comfortably, one set close, and he still finished with 13. Maybe a 3-set marathon. Who knows where Bublik gets there, whether he wins or loses in 3 sets. But 12.5, I think, makes sense. Kaza, we saw look, I'd say, extremely flustered early in the first set in Gstaad. Then he settled in the second set. I think you'll see at least one set that's close, and I do think that's enough to send Bublik over the team total. Kaza, though, is in his first ever final. Maybe you see him struggle with nerves early on, but he's been very good in the event. Both guys can serve quite well on the courts here, and I do think you're going to end up seeing a pretty long match, at least based on the game total. So give me Bublik team total over 12.5 at -140 as my lock for the show. For the dog, I'm going to go to Umag, and I'm going to go with Taberner, plus the 3.5 games, actually, at +100. I think Darderi's going to win, but I do think Darderi has been a little bit vulnerable at times, and I think Taberner's proven, at least based on what he's shown in this event, he can make this match very close. Darderi has lost one set in 3 of his last 5, and he was 1 point away from losing a set again on Friday. So he's almost lost a set in 4 of the last 5. So the point is, Taberner can at least win a set maybe to keep it interesting. I think Taberner can as well lose in theory in a close straight set battle. Or maybe he shocks the world and he wins. But I think you're looking at Taberner, who's been playing the best tennis of his entire career, a very solid clay player who looks very comfortable on the courts in Umag. I think that Darderi's going to win, but I do think Taberner is being disrespected here at 3.5 at even money. I think Darderi is going to mess around a bit. I think Taberner will force Darderi to beat him. I don't see him beating himself personally. Give me Taberner to go down swinging. I'll take the plus 3.5 at +100 as my dog. So once again, the plays here for the lock and dog. The lock's going to be on Bublik. Team total over 12.5 games -140. For the dog, give me Taberner plus 3.5 at +100. We're back once again in the morning to break down Washington to get into the semis. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets.